Ladies and gentlemen, HEX community of all ages, hey, Jake Freedom here, coming to you live from YouTube. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do a series called HEX from the beginning. It's for the new players that have maybe watched some videos on YouTube. Maybe you have seen some players play on Twitch. And you've decided, hey, you know what, I want to take a stab at this game. So you have signed up for a game account, you've downloaded the game, you've installed it, you've got it started, you've loaded it up, and you're sitting at this screen here. Select starter deck. And basically you have 8 decks you can choose from. 4 under the Ardent faction and 4 under the Underworld faction. They are the humans, the orcs, the coyote, and the elf for the Ardent, and then you have the necrotic, dwarf, shinhair, and venin under the Underworld. But what does that even mean? What do these decks, what kind of cards are in these decks? What is the best deck? What's the worst deck? What deck should I pick to play with? Well, here we're going to try and answer that for you. Some of these decks are better than others. Some of them are obviously horrible, and some would have to agree that one deck out of these 8 might be better than all of them. Now that is entirely up to you. That's entirely under your certain playstyle. That's entirely where you want to take the deck and how much you want to build upon a certain gameplay style. Let's say, for example, if you choose the orcs, you want to build a powerful orc deck to start with. You'd probably want to choose orcs. Or if you're into humans, you want to try to build a powerful human deck. You obviously want to choose the humans. Or if you're into elves, things like that. If you're into the necrotic way, but still, what's in these decks? There's no way for you to find out unless you maybe looked on the internet and found out from somebody else. But let's go ahead and go over what's in these 8 decks, so maybe you can have a better chance at selecting the proper deck for your given playstyle. Alright, so now I'm in the game under a different account here, so I can actually show you the decks and we can go over them and talk about them and see what's good and what's not. First of all, we're going to start with the Dwarf Deck. This is just how they're listed in the actual store here. All decks do cost 500 platinum each. So let's start with the Dwarf Deck. What does the Dwarf Deck consist of? Well, it's a Sapphire Ruby deck. The first 4 decks we're going to talk about, they do not consist of any cards from set 2 or set 3. It's strictly set 1 cards. So what do we have in the Dwarf Deck? Well, first of all, we have Terabot. Terabot is a 7 casting cost artifact card. Now, a lot of the cards in the Dwarf Deck are going to be artifact type cards and or dwarf cards, obviously. So let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 cards there that are artifacts. We got 7, 10, 13. We have about 16 cards that are artifact cards in the Dwarf Deck. So Terabot, he's a 7 casting cost card. He's a 3/5 card, and he has flight. And this has -1 cost for all of your zones for each dwarf and or robot you control. Now, the Dwarf Deck consists of robots and dwarfs, obviously, so this card will always come out cheaper than 7, most likely. Not a bad card if you can get them out fairly early. We have Construction Plans Warhawk. You can exhaust dwarves or robots. You can add a counter to this here, and then when you can remove 5 or more, you can create a Warhawk. You have a charge bot here. This is when this enters play, gain a charge. It's a 1/1 troop that 1/1 troop artifact that costs 1. What else we have here? We have Saper's Charge, kind of a control-ish card here. You can put him out for 1. You can sacrifice. You can deal 2 damage to a target champion or troop. It's going to cost you 2 to sacrifice it, though. What else we have? Cavern Commandos is 3 casting cost, 1/4 troop. Quicker to get out, and he's a little bit difficult to deal with. Sort of, since he has a bigger back end on him, but he's very weak to begin with. But he does count as one of those dwarf cards. We have Researcher Adapt, and this is a 4 casting cost 2/3 troop, and it says when this enters play, if you control an artifact, which you probably will, you can draw a card. Oracle Song for 3 resources, you can draw 2 cards. So this deck has a lot of card draw into it. See, the next one we have here is Research Librarian. It's a 2 casting cost, 1/2 troop, and for 7 resources, you can exhaust it and draw a card, but you pay 1 less for this particular ability for each artifact you control, so you can probably end up drawing cards pretty cheap. We have Technical Genius. That is a 2 casting cost, 1/2 troop, and it says your artifacts in all zones have -1 cost. So that would go pair well, very, very well with Terabot, since Terabot is get back up there. Oh, too far. Terabot, he gets -1 for all dwarfs and/or robots, and since Technical Genius is a dwarf itself, with this card out here, Terabot would actually be 5 now. Next one we have here is War Machinist. 1 casting cost, 1/1 troop. When an artifact enters play under your control, this deals 1 damage to each opposing champion. Bombsmith. When it enters play, deal 1 damage to a target troop. And what else do we have in here? We have Construction Plans, Ingenuity Engine. This card here is kind of cool if you can get it to go. You have to exhaust 1 or more dwarves or robots. You can add a counter to it, and if there are 10 or more, you can exhaust it, and then every turn, the Ingenuity Engine will create some random artifact card for you. Some of them are pretty cool, some of them are so-so. And then I think probably the main card in here is the Dru's Colossal Walker. It's a 5 casting cost, 8/8 troop with Crush. And he must attack, but he doesn't ready under your ready step. So in order to ready him again, you have to pay 8 health. So that's probably the main card. He gets through with a lot of damage, and he can push damage over even if somebody blocks. Then we have Experimental Warhawk. This has Crush as well. It's 5 cost, 3/4. This troop gets +1/+0 this turn for 2 resources. Then you have Master Theory Crafter, and it says you can exhaust him for 2 resources. You can create a Warbot and put it into play. A Warbot will then again help you, with those cards you have to exhaust with. So some people will say that the Dwarf Deck is probably one of the stronger decks to start out with. When we were talking about just the first 4, because we didn't have 8 before. We only had these 4 to begin with, and out of these 4, the Dwarf Deck was by far superior. Since the release of Set 3, we've had 4 additional decks, starter decks, come out. Some of them are worse than others, but the Dwarf Deck is still pretty powerful. It just lacks cards from Set 2 and Set 3, I think, that it could benefit from, and there are a few cards from the Dwarf Deck that are missing that you could probably add in that are actually in Set 1 as well. So that's the Dwarf Deck. Let's go on to the Human Deck here. Now the Human Deck it's all about the keyword inspiration, or inspire, I guess it should say. So most of these cards have some type of ability that's going to take place when another card enters. So let's take, for example, starting at the top here, we got Protectorate Clergyman. It's a 3 casting cost, 3/2 troop, and it has the card text on here. It says Inspire. And it says, as another troop with cost equal to or greater than this troop's cost enters play under your control, that troop gets +1/+1. So what does that mean? Well, if a card in the deck that's going to be 3 casting cost or greater, let's find one, let's say Buccaneer. Buccaneer would meet that requirement. It would get +1/+1, so it would come into the battlefield at a 3/3 instead of just a 2/2. So all Inspire cards work that way. It has to be greater than or equal to the card casting cost that it's currently on. So like Shield Trainer, for example, it's a 1 casting cost, 1/1 troop, and it says as another troop enters the battlefield with cost equal to or greater than, that troop is going to get +0/+1. So then we have Kraken Guard Mariner, 2 casting cost, 2/2, good, not a bad card there. 2 cost, 2/2, can't complain. Inspire as another troop with equal to or greater than. I'm not going to say that anymore because it just takes too long. So its Inspire is when another troop enters the battlefield, that troop will get Steadfast. Adamanthian Scrivener is a 1 casting cost, 1/1. It says when another troop, no matter what, enters your control, you gain 1 health. Some people think, well, gaining 1 health, that's not that great. Who cares? You gain 1 health. Big deal. Well, it does come into play with the next card here. It's Righteous Paladin, and it says when you gain health, this gets +1/+1. So this is a pretty good combo there. So as soon as you drop Adamanthian Scrivener down, and then you'll drop Righteous Paladin, the Righteous Paladin will come out as a 3/3 immediately. Then we have Diamond Aura here. This is a quick action card. Quick action cards, if you aren't familiar with how they can be played in response to your opponent's turn. Like if your opponent's playing on his turn and you have the priority, you can. This is when you can play quick action cards. I'm not going to go into depth on the actual turn sequence here, but that's just when they can be played. They can be played on your opponent's turn or on your turn. So this one here is a target troop gets +2/+2 in steadfast. That's permanent. That's not just this turn. It's kind of expensive, but it is a quick action card. What else do we have here? We have Bravery, 1 casting cost, another quick action. Target troop gets +1/+1. And we have Inner Conflict. This is the basic action. A target troop will get this can attack or block. This is a pretty decent card in any deck as long as you're playing, obviously Diamond. Then we have Guard Dog, 2 casting costs. It's a 1/1 troop. It says when this blocks, this gets +2/+2. So if you use it only as a blocker, it's going to be a 3/3 blocker. Then we have Buccaneer. It's a 3 casting cost 2/2 troop, and when this comes into play, you can bounce another troop back into its opponent's hands, and it's going to get cost +1. Next in the deck, we have Phoenix Guard Scout, and this is just a 2 casting cost 1/3 flyer troop. Nothing special about it. It's just it has flight. Then we have Lord Benjamin the Wise. It's a 2 casting cost 1/1 troop with flight. And it says when Benjamin deals damage to an opposing champion, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put a human from among those into your hand, shuffle the remaining cards into your deck. Most of the time, you're probably going to dig up a human, since most of these cards in this deck are human. And when we talk about human, we're talking about what it says in the card here. This is a human mage. Prophet of Logan is a human mage. What else do we have here? Just to show you. Here's a human ranger. So things like that. So probably the main card in this deck here is going to be this Prophet of Logan. It's a 7 casting cost, double Sapphire Threshold, and it's a 3/3, but when it enters play, it creates 3 Echoes of Logan, puts them into play as well, and those are going to be basically a mirror of this card, so you're going to have 4 3/3s on the field when this enters play. And what do we have left here? We have Hero of Adamant. It's a 5 casting cost, and it has, as this enters play, reveal the top 10 cards of your deck. For each human revealed this way, this gets +2/+2. Put the revealed cards into your deck. So most of the time, this will probably come out as a 4/4, if not a 6/6, and you're probably going to hit some humans, since this is a pretty human-heavy deck. Problem is, there's only one of them, so you got to be able to hit that first. Next one here we have is Phoenix Guard Aeronaut. It is a 5 casting cost 3/2 troop. It has flight and it's socketable minor. We're not going to get into socketing cards. That's not what this video is about right now, but it is a socketable card, so it's not a bad card. It's 3/2. It's kind of weak on the back end, but you can buff it with whatever gem you want to put in there. We'll talk about those later. So that's the human deck. Again, not probably the best deck. I probably wouldn't pick that deck unless you really, really want to become humans. The next deck we're going to talk about here is Orcs. This is a Blood Ruby deck. And what does it consist of? Well, it consists of 3 Darkspire Priestesses. That's at 2 casting cost, 2/1 troop. And its card text is, when this dies, choose one at random. It deals 3 damage to each opposing champion, or search your deck for a troop with Darkspire in its name and put it in your hand. So either when this dies, it's going to deal 3 damage to your opponent, or you're going to be able to go into your deck and pull another one back out. Next one here is Zombie Vulture, 5 casting cost, 2 blood threshold, 4/1 troop. It has flight. This is just kind of a filler card. It's not that great. It's way too expensive, even though it flies. But you're talking 5 cost for a 4/1 flyer, so it's just kind of a filler card. Next one here we have is Throat Cutter, 3 casting cost, 2/2 troop, and it says this and other orcs you control have Rage 1. Now this is a pretty good card here because a lot of these cards are orcs. Hence the name of the deck, Orcs. Next one here we have is Shadow Grove Witch. It's a 4/1, 4 casting cost, single blood threshold, 2/4, and it says when this enters play, target opposing champion reveals a random card from their hand. That troop gets -2/-2. And what do we have now? Now we're probably going to get into some of the orcs. Yes, here we go. Endbringer, 5 casting cost, double blood. This is a orc. It has a 4/4 orc, and says this and other orcs you control have Rage 2 for each champion with 10 or less health. So if your opponent has 10 or less health, it's going to have Rage 2, or other orcs you have are going to have Rage 2. If both of you have 10 or less health, your your orcs are going to have Rage 4. So it's a pretty decent card if you can get that to happen. But more than likely, it's probably not going to happen. Not saying that it won't, but you know, it can, obviously. Somebody's got to get down below 10 health. But getting a double bonus off of that probably won't, more often than not, you're just going to have, you know, your opponent being down to 10. Maybe it could be the other way around, you never know. If it's the other way around, if you're down under 10, you know, then you're going to be maybe back into the game a little bit, but, you know, again, it's tough to say. Plus, there's only one. The next one here is Gore Feast. Now, if you've done any research on the internet about some of the top decks, you maybe have read something about the Gore Feast decks. And this is a forecasting cost of double ruby. It's a basic action, and what it says here is it says all the troops you control get rage 1. So if you're stacking rages here, let's just say we have the Endbringer out and it's got double bonus on it, so all of our troops now are rage 4. This guy here's got rage 1, and you play this and you attack, and let's just say there's a couple blockers or whatever. I'm not going to go into details there. So everything's got basically rage 5. So a 4-1 troop will immediately go to 9-1. And the cool thing about Gore Feast here is that once you attack, for every troop that attacked that turn, you get to redo your turn again, basically go right back into combat and attack again. So now they're going to have rage 5 again. So now that 9-9 troop goes to 14. So you can see how that can be pretty powerful. So there's quite a few Gore Feast decks out there. There's not as many as there used to be, so it's dwindling, but they're still out there. Next one here we have is Ruby Aura, 2 casting cost, quick action. Target troop gets +1/+1 in Swift Strike. Swift Strike is a very cool ability. It allows your troop to attack first. So if you have a 3-1 troop and your opponent has a, let's say a 5-1 troop, your 3-1 will kill him because it does its damage first. And then we have 3 burns. 3 burns is just a quick action, deal 2 damage to target champion or troop. And then we have Arena Brawler. It is a 2 casting cost, 3-1 orc. And we have Wrathseeker. So Wrathseeker is a 3 casting cost, 1-1 orc warrior with rage 2. So if you have rage 5 plus its rage 2, it'd be rage 7. So when it attacked the first time, it'd be an 8-1 if you had that all line up. Probably never will, but, or I shouldn't say probably, more than likely it never will. Veteran Gladiator is kind of a decent card. It's 3 casting cost, 3-2 troop, and this has to attack, and when it does attack, you can target an opposing card, troop that you do not control. Obviously, it has to be opposing, and you can make it not block. So if you have, there's 3 of them in the deck. If all 3 of them or 2 of them in the deck, if both of them are attacking, you can target 2 opposite troops from you, and they can't block you, so you can basically get through some damage. Then we have 2 Burn to the Grounds. This is a 1x card, so basically if you cast it for 5 points, it's going to do 4 points of damage. So I was going to use 1 to cast it, and then the other casting points are going to go towards damage there, and this can go to the champion or a troop. Then we have Teltaka Orc Gladiator. It's a 5 casting cost, double ruby. It's a 4/4, and it says you for 3 resources you can exhaust Teltaka. Or you can exhaust her, and then Teltaka battles target opposing troop. When that troop dies this turn, if Teltaka is in play, transform into Teltaka High Cleric. And I can't remember right now what Teltaka High Cleric is. I'll put a picture of it when I do post-processing. And then the final cards we have here are Shamed Gladiator, 2 casting cost, 2/2 Orc Warrior. It's a Sockable Miner. It says when this enters play, it deals 2 damage to you. So again, with its Sockable powers, you can buff him one way or the other. Alright, so the last deck that we're going to look at out of the first 4 that only have Shards of Fate cards in it is going to be the Shinhair Starter deck. And the Shinhair Starter deck at first glance looks like it could be something, but it always falls a little short. So let's go ahead and go over the cards here. We have 2 Command Towers. Troops you control have +1/+0. And we have 3 Blood Bearers. It's a 1/1 for 1, and when it dies, you gain 1 health. We have 3 Shroom Shaws. It's a 2 casting cost, 1/1. When it dies, it creates 2 Battle Hoppers. And we have 3 Murders to destroy target non-artifact troop. And then we have 1 the Mushwaki, 4 casting cost, a double blood 1/1. And this one here is kind of cool if you have a lot of Battle Hoppers out in play. This guy can come into play and he can eat those, and for each one he eats, he'll get +3/+3. The next one we have here is Wretched Brood. 2 casting cost, a double sapphire. It's a constant, and at the start of your turn, lose 1 health, create a Battle Hopper and put it into play. So it kind of goes on to the same effect of trying to get Battle Hoppers out for the Mushwaki to eat, or for the next card, if you have a lot of Battle Hoppers, you can play Onslaught, and you can give all of your troops +3/+3 and crush. It's kind of two not really 2 win scenarios, but it's kind of a win scenario there. You get a lot of troops out, then buff them all with Onslaught, or bring the Mushwaki out and buff it by itself. The problem is you only have 1 of each, so you need to be able to find them first, and I don't think there's any card draw in this particular deck here. Next troop we got here is just a 7 casting cost, double wild, 7/7 dinosaur. And we have 2 of those actually, and then we have a Bucktooth Commander, and it says other Shinhir you control have +1/+1, so this is a pretty decent card to have out, and you have 2 of those. And you have Rune Ear Commander, and it says this has +1/+1 for each troop you control, so you can kind of see the synergy that the deck has here with the Shinhir there. Then we have 3 Runt of the Litter, and this is create 2 Battle Hoppers and put them into play. And then we have Shinhir Militia. It's just a 2 casting cost, 1/2 troop, nothing special about it. And then we have Moon Airy. I don't know how you want to pronounce him. Moon Airy. I always pronounce him Airy Sensei. But anyways, he's a 2-drop 1/1, and when he comes into play, you draw a card. That's the only card draw, I believe, that's actually in this deck. I forgot about him. And then we have 3 Wild Growths. Wild Growth is just a quick action, 1 cost, and you can give a troop +3/+3 this turn, and then you shuffle it back into your deck, and now that Wild Growth becomes 0 cost. So what do we have left? We have Boulder Brute. Boulder Brute is a 5 casting cost, single wild threshold 4/4, and he's a socketable miner. It's a decent card in limited. When Shards of Fate was in limited, it was a pretty decent card. By itself in constructed, it's not that great, but again, you can socket them to help the card out itself. So that's the 4 decks we had for a while. That are just strictly Shards of Fate cards there. Now, if I were to rate these all by themselves, definitely I would rate the Dwarf Deck number 1, probably Orc number 2, Humans 3, and Shinhir 4. Humans and Shinhir can go either way. But we have 4 other decks, brand new starter decks that just came out with Armies of Myth, and we'll go ahead and start with the Kyodal deck here. Now, the Kyodal deck is somewhat, I don't even really want to call it a ramp deck. It's not, because it's not really ramp. Like there's only a few ramp cards in here, and I think that's just the Halloween Brave. Yes. So this one here basically is all about prophecy, and prophecy is a keyword that was introduced in Armies of Myth. And basically what prophecy is well, let's read one here. Storm Drummer. Its prophecy is when this enters play, the next troop in your deck gets, when this enters play, you may have a battle target opposing troops. So Storm Drum will come into play, and then it'll do its little prophecy thing. So the next troop in your deck, I mean, that could be the very next card, it could be 3 cards down, gets, when that troop comes into play, you can have a battle target opposing troop. Now that seems like a really cool thing, like, yeah, that would be really awesome. But if that lands on a card that's like, say, Halloween Brave, it's not going to be very effective at all. That's the one thing about prophecy. Prophecy is, if things happen, they're set up to happen in the future, and unless you have a decent way to find those cards, prophecy can be very limiting and lackluster. So let's just go ahead and start with the deck. So we have Halloween Brave, 1 casting cost, 1/1. You can exhaust him, and you can gain a temporary resource, and also when he comes into play, you gain a wild threshold. So we talked about Storm Drummer, and we have Red Fur Ranger. Red Fur Ranger is a 2 casting cost, 2/2 troop, and its prophecy is when this enters play, the next troop in your deck, it gets crushed. So again, if that next troop was a 1/1 or a 2/2 and it gets crushed, it's really not going to be that helpful. Let's see, we have Sterling Star Watchers, our next card here, 2 casting cost, 2/2. It has Skyguard. If you're not familiar with Skyguard, it gives the ability to block cards with flight even though he's on the ground. Next we have is 2 Throwbacks. It's a 2 casting cost, 1 Sapphire, and target troop gets -1 attack, put it into its controller's hand. Again, that's a quick action, can be played on your opponent's turn. What do we have next? Vine Trap, just a very basic troop here, 3 casting cost, 2 wild threshold, 2/4. you know, if you were to pick this deck, it probably wouldn't be the first card I'd pull out, but it would be close. You know, it's just cards that don't do anything or have any card text or tend not to be played a whole heck of a lot. What do we have next? Rites of the Tranquil Dream. This is an Armies of Myth card. 3 casting cost, 1 wild threshold. Quick action. It says you can reveal reveal the top 6 cards of your deck. Revealed troops get +1/+1. Put a revealed troop into your hand. Put the remaining cards into your deck. So if a card you reveal is a 3/3, like say you reveal a Night Sky Stargazer, it's going to be a 4/4, and you can put that into your hand. So again, that's okay, but if you reveal a 1/1, it's going to be a 2/2, which is going to be better than it is, because typically those 1/1s are going to be 1 casting cost, so a 2/2 for 1 isn't bad. So next one we have is Night Sky Stargazer, and its prophecy is when this enters play, the next troop in your deck gets +2/+2. So you can kind of see, you know, how prophecy is playing out here. It's always, you know, the next troop in your deck, the next troop, whatever it is, you know. So it's not bad. Just you gotta be able to draw those cards to be able to, you know, utilize them and draw them in an efficient manner. And there's a lot of RNG that goes into prophecy because you just don't know what's sitting there. There are ways you can set that up with cards that maybe you can play with the top card of your library, you know, so you could see it, you know, different ways like that. But one of the card draw mechanics we have in this, or not mechanics, one of the card drawing things I think is, what do we have for card drawing here? There actually isn't any card draw. I thought there was. I was mistaken. Okay, so there's no card drawing in this deck, unfortunately. So then the next troop we have is Zodiac Shaman. I was confusing Zodiac Shaman with Zodiac Divination, I think it was, and that's draw 2 or 3 cards, whatever it is. Anyway, Zodiac Shaman, 5 casting cost, single Sapphire, 2/5 troop, not the best in the world. We have Earth Caller here, 5 casting cost, double wild, 2/2, and says prophecy when this enters turn, the next troop in your deck gets +5/+5. Now that's not horrible right there, because the next troop +5/+5, even on the 1/1, is going to come out as a 6/6. So that one's not a bad card at all. Predatory Prey, 5 casting cost, double wild, basic action. Target troop you control gets +2/+2 this turn. That troop battles target opposing troop. So you could use Predatory Prey as some type of pseudo removal card. Granted, it's really expensive to do that, but you know, it is possible. And then we have Wakuna Crowfeather. It's a 4 casting cost, single Sapphire. It's a 2/4 troop, and its prophecy is when this enters play, the next troop in your deck gets +2/+2 and flight. If it is a Coyote, it also gets that prophecy power. So what do we have for Coyotes in here? We have the Earth Caller as a Coyote. We have the Night Sky Stargazer as a Coyote. Let's see, what else do we have here as a Coyote? Rhythmic Spiritualist is a Coyote. So almost all the cards, in fact, if not all of them, are Coyotes. So other than the quick actions, obviously, and the Vine Trap. So the chance of you having that happen, you know, is pretty good. So you could keep that prophecy going, since most of your cards are Coyote. In fact, I think all the troops are Coyote. So the next one we have is Rhythmic Spiritualist, 3 casting cost, double wild, 3/4. It's at the end of your turn. You may put target troop from your graveyard into your deck. If you do, that troop gets +2/+2 and cost -2. So that's not a horrible card, but again, there's only one. There's only one of them. So that's kind of, I shouldn't say that's with the shortfall of these decks, but you know, some of the really good cards, there's only one. So you have to find that card first. And let's see what else we have. We have Bright Moon Totem, that is, a 3 casting cost artifact, and its prophecy is exhaust 2 Coyotes you control. Next troop in your deck gets +1/+1. Yeah, I don't know about that card, but it is what it is. And then we have Replica Reinforcements, 5 casting cost, basic action. You create a replica of a target troop you control, and each troop you control that shares a trait with it, and put those troops into your hand. So if you did this, and a trait would be Coyote. Coyote's a trait, so you could create a replica of that troop, create a replica of a target troop you control, and each troop you control that shares a trait with it. So basically, anything that you control on the field, if it says Coyote, it's going to create a replica of it and put it in your hand. So that's a pretty decent card. And then we have Mystic of the Tranquil Dream, 4 casting cost, 2/4, Socketable Miner. Since you are playing, you know, Sapphire Wild, one of the gems you could put in there would maybe give it flight. See another one. Let's see, with the wild, you could do a +1/+1. I think there's a gem that allows you to, when it comes into play, you can draw a card, maybe. I think that's one of them, you know. So Mystic of the Tranquil Dream is kind of a versatile card, but again, it's not the best. It's 4 casting cost. It's only a 2/4, but given that it's a 2/4, you put a +1/+1 gem in it, you know, it's going to be a 3/5 at least. So it's got a bigger back end on it. It's a little bit harder to remove. So that is the first of the new decks there. That's the Keitel deck. It's not a horrible deck. It's just probably wouldn't be my pick for a deck there. Again, out of the first 5, if we had to pick one, knowing what I know now about all the 3 sets that are out, I probably would go with, you know, Orcs, or I don't even know if I would pick the Dwarf deck anymore. Dwarfs or the Artifact Robot, they're there. It's just, you know, personally, I think I'd probably pick the Orc so far out of the 5 decks that we have spoke about here.